And welcome once again to Spotlight, the current affairs program that brings you relevant conversations and leaves you more informed than you joined us. My name is Nuong Falong and I have the pleasure of steering you through today's program. Today we are asking several substantive questions. Key among them is the COVID-19 pandemic anywhere close to an end? We're asking these questions because today Ghana took delivery of the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines under the COVAX initiative. What is the COVAX initiative? It's an initiative by the World Health Organization that, among several goals, aims to ensure that there's an equitable distribution of vaccines across the world, especially to less wealthy countries. We have a few technical
unique, contemporary, engaging. Introducing the ultimate talk show that captures, scrutinizes, and stirs up conversations around relevant content across the globe. We talk to the movers and shakers in the tech, youth entrepreneurship, creative arts industry, and many more. Join me, Kwame A. Opoku, usher you to the realm beyond the headlines, new tech releases, trends, and clicks. It's going to be a fun ride on MS Conversations.
No, this is not business as usual. This is a different kind of business. From the global stock market to our central bank to insights on insurance and investment, Spotlight is the show for you. Here, we look beyond the numbers. On Spotlight, we'll tell you the complexity behind the figures. On Spotlight, we examine hardcore financial issues. Join me, Philip Nanfuri, on MX24, together with policymakers and experts as we talk business.
Welcome back to Spotlight. As I mentioned before we went on the break, Ghana took delivery of the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines today. Some 600,000 vaccines were delivered under the COVAX initiative by the World Health Organization. Now, the vaccines that we received are the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which is produced by the Serum Institute of India. And so the question today is there an end in sight to this global COVID-19 pandemic as we see it so far? The historic part of receiving these vaccines is that under the COVAX initiative, Ghana is the first country to receive these vaccines. Ghana is not the first country to receive vaccines across the world, but under the COVAX initiative, we are number one. We have countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, South Africa. They have already started giving out these vaccinations. But we also have some 200 countries across the world that are yet to even receive one single dose of these vaccines. So we are quite special, and we are dealing with a quite special situation here. But what does this mean for the COVID-19 journey so far? Is it a landslide defeat against COVID-19? Can we even talk about that yet? Joining me to discuss this and answer the questions that we have Dr. Paul Owusu-Oduro. He's a public health specialist. We also have Dr. Michael Owusu of the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. And joining us also on phone, we have Dr. Lord Anthony Bassing, who is a General Secretary of the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Sciences, who issued a statement earlier today urging Ghanaians to be more open to receiving the vaccine. Lord Anthony Bassing, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
Now, Dr. Paul Owusu-Oduro, if you can hear me, let me start with you. When we say 600,000 vaccines have arrived, technically, we mean 300,000, don't we? Dr. Owusu-Oduro, can you hear me? Okay, I think, Dr. Oduro, can you unmute yourself? That might help. Hello, doctor. Kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you. I think we're having some challenges with Dr. Owusu-Oduro, so I'm just going to go on to Dr. Lord Anthony Bassing. Dr. Lord, the initial question was, if we have received 600,000 vaccines, does this technically translate into 300,000? Because we know that you need double doses.
Well, that is very true. There are 600 doses that have come in, and so these 600 doses, and since everybody is supposed to take about 2 doses each, yes, it translates to about
that brings us down to 300,000
people. Yes. Yeah.
Now, there's a critical question about the efficacy of this particular vaccine, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, because we know we have different kinds of vaccines. Have we got, some of them apparently are more efficient than the others. What is the efficacy of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine?
Okay, so thank you very much again. Yes, thank you very much. So first of all, this particular vaccine is not meant for everybody. The studies that have been conducted on these vaccines have been conducted within First of all, it's been approved by our FDA, and our FDA is very efficient in looking at it in our local population. So they are not just importing it and bringing it to us to use. What they are doing is it's been tested in our local population, and it's been found to be efficacious in our local populations, and that is why the FDA has approved it for use. Also, there are high-risk populations that are being targeted: health workers, frontline security services, and all of those ones. These people are people who are likely to have to get infected very often, and it might lead to severe disease if care is not taken. So when they are giving the vaccines, then at least they are protected from getting severe disease. Some of them would also be protected from getting the disease at all. And so all of these factors play into the reasons why these vaccines are procured. So at this stage, the efficacy, just talking about maybe 63%, 70% or anything of the efficacy of the vaccine, is not as important as what the vaccine is coming to do and the kind of good the vaccine will do for us once we start to.
So essentially, you're saying that we can trust the choice of the FDA and the government,
yes,
for this particular vaccine.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Do you have any idea what went into the choice for this specific vaccine? Or because if we have efficacies that are quite higher, what would be the factors that go into this choice?
Okay, so I think that first of all, you need to understand what the COVAX basically is. COVAX is one of the 3 arms or 3 pillars of the Access to COVID-19 Tools, or ACT, that was started by the WHO when COVID started. What they wanted to do was to make sure that diagnostics and vaccines that were meant for COVID didn't become a case where only the rich countries had access to it. So they wanted to make sure that everybody, even poor countries or low or middle income countries, have access to these vaccines, drugs, and diagnostics. So that was what COVAX came about. COVAX basically procurement for these vaccines are hard. You procure all these vaccines and then distribute to different countries. Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine were sublet to, or basically they made an Indian company produce it at first, so that they are distributed. That is what is available right now. So you have 2 choices. Either you wait until you have what you term as more efficacious, or you can get what is available right now for your population, which is at high risk. And looking at our numbers, we have over 80,000 people that have infected. We have over 580 people that have died. I mean, it's either you are waiting to get a better vaccine in quotes, or you can just do with what is available, which is also very efficacious, which can go a long way in reducing the burden in the country. So I think that is what went into preparing the vaccines that are available.
So you're saying it serves the same purpose as the others?
Yes, it does. It does.
Let me just put you on hold there while I quickly go to Dr. Michael Owusu, and I want to know the same thing from Dr. Michael Owusu. If you can hear me, please unmute yourself. Is the question of efficacy relevant, or should we be making do with the vaccine that we have presently? Dr. Owusu, can you hear me? Please unmute yourself. Dr. Michael Owusu, can you hear me? Okay, in his absence, Dr. Paul Owusu-Oduro, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Now, Dr. Paul, I was just speaking with Dr. Bassey about the efficacy. So the question to you is the same.
Okay.
Should we be concerned about efficacy?
Definitely. Efficacy is quite important when it comes to vaccines. But efficacy is used in clinical trial context. So efficacy basically means is the vaccine able to do what it is claimed to do. And that is used in the context of clinical trials. Once
Before we proceed, are you able to, sorry, Dr. Michael, are you able to put your video on? Is that possible? Are we able to access your video? Because we don't have it right now.
Sorry?
Are you able to turn on your video?
Hello? The network is not that strong.
Okay,
so
all right. Now,
video breaks.
That's fine. Let's just proceed. At least we have a better connection this way. So if you can just proceed, please. My apologies.
Okay, good. So I was saying efficacy has to do with clinical trials.
Okay.
And what efficacy basically means is the vaccine or the treatment that we are testing, is it able to do what the manufacturer claims it does? And that is usually expressed in percentage forms. If you look at the AstraZeneca one that we have received, various studies have indicated different efficacies depending on the population in which it was used. But the recent one I saw put the efficacy for a combined population risk of you not taking the vaccine outweighs the benefit and all those things. So right there, we have cut out a chunk of the population from receiving the vaccine. So we need those who qualify to be in tune with whatever we are doing as much as possible, to be able to accept it so that we should be able to at least get ahead of the virus.
Doc, so this essentially delivers herd immunity.
Yes, at least if we're able to get about 70% of the population immunized, then we are heading towards herd immunity.
And herd immunity is the point at which we have some semblance of defeat against the virus.
That is correct.
Now, we also know that WHO made a statement that they were working towards ensuring health workers and older people in all countries receive the vaccines in the first 100 days of 2021. We have already crossed a significant portion of number of those days. Is this a possibility in Ghana?
We have received 600,000 doses of the vaccine, which translates into 300 technically, because each person will have to take 2 shots. I remember, I think the Pfizer one or so, when the first consignment was shipped to some parts of Europe, the second consignment became an issue. And that is a bit worrying. The total number of frontline workers, I'm not limited to health workers only, because there are other people who face this deadly virus on day-to-day basis. So we consider them all frontline workers. And I think the population of frontline workers is more than 300,000. So if you are going to run into issues of not receiving subsequent doses on time, then I don't think it is achievable to be able to cover all frontline workers within the 100 days that WHO actually put out. And mind you, we are not the only people in need of the vaccine. There are other countries that are also putting pressure on these manufacturers to supply. So I am not too sure the arrangement the government has put in place to ensure constant supply of vaccines to be able to meet these WHO requirements.
Thank you, Doc. Let me just quickly find out if Dr. Michael Owusu has been able to join us. Dr. Michael Owusu.
Yes, hello.
Fantastic. We were having difficulties hearing you initially. Now it seems you're quite clear.
Yes, yeah.
Right, we just talked about frontline workers being able to receive this vaccine. But we also know that it's not everyone who is interested in receiving a vaccine, although it seems like quite a privilege to be able to access a vaccine. Do we have the choice of rejecting a vaccine if we do not want it? Especially the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yes, so good afternoon or good evening to your
good evening, yes.
So the question of do we have a choice? Do we have a choice to take a vaccine or not? Of course, we have a choice. Ethically, the world has been through a lot of changes when it comes to giving people the willpower and option to take or not to take a drug. So human beings naturally have their own rights, and you cannot force an individual to take a drug. The person has to decide on, and it's against the international declarations of Helsinki, which is what some of us are known for, know very much when it comes to conducting research. So the choice of the person is part, and that has to be respected across board. So the vaccine must be voluntary. People will have to decide whether to take the vaccine or not. What we have to do is to engage and convince people the importance of what they are doing, that this is for their benefit. Principle of medicine, what we call principle of beneficence and non-maleficence. If what you are giving will, the benefits far outweigh the harm that will cause the population, then of course we will expect many people to buy into this and to accept, which is why community engagement is one of the key blocks that WHO stated and put out to various African countries to access.
Okay, it looks like Dr. Michael Owusu, his connection has frozen on us. So I'm just going to go back to Dr. Bassing. Are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Bassing is the General Secretary of the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists. Dr. Bassing, I was just going to say, he was talking about community engagement, but have we seen enough of that? Because we know out there, we have anti-vaxxers. We also have a lot of local people who think this is some Western ploy to harm them in some way medically. How are we going to get more people to take the vaccine? Or to be open to taking it?
So before I come to that question, I wanted to add a little bit to what Dr. Owusu talked about.
Please go
in
ahead.
terms of the availability of the vaccines when it comes to procuring the other doses. I think one of the things we should know about that's why it's very important, or it's very good that we are part of the COVAX system. So the COVAX system is like a warehouse. Let's put it that way. It's like it's a warehouse where it's COVAX that basically procures all of this, and they are procuring about 2 billion vaccines, and that's why Oxford AstraZeneca has licensed other manufacturers so that they are able to manufacture all of these doses for the COVAX, basically for COVAX. And then COVAX then does the distribution. So with Ghana receiving the first tranche, we are assured that we are going to receive other tranches. The plan is that at least 20% of the population of every country, the low and middle income country that has signed on to the COVAX platform, would have enough doses to be able to vaccinate their population. That is about 20% of their vulnerable population. So at least that is assured. We are not going to the manufacturers ourselves to go and negotiate. That has already been done by the COVAX platform, and they are just distributing to all the recipient countries.
A quick follow-up to that before we proceed, Dr. Bassing. We are not, yes, because we know that your association issued a statement encouraging Ghanaians to be open to receiving the vaccine. But we know that not all Ghanaians are privileged to the information that convinces them about the significance of the vaccine. So how do we reach these people, especially those who are set against receiving the vaccine? Because we know that you have a right to decline the vaccine. But at this time, when it's a pandemic and each person's action affects the other person, we need to be able to have a system where we are convincing
suppress Africans from overpopulating the earth. And
Dr.
Bassing, try as much as you can. Yes.
My apologies, but have there been any have there been any clinical observations that support all the theories?
Of course not. So all of these are not true. But the thing is that anti-vaxxers are very adept at sharing fake news and false information. I'm sure we are all part of WhatsApp groups, and you see these anti-vaxxers just taking one out of across, and that becomes a problem in getting people to accept to take these vaccines. And that is why we need to start making use of community volunteers, because in most of the communities, these volunteers are seen as the health personnel. So if a community volunteer is able to talk to the people and tell them that, oh, the vaccine is good, it is not going to do what they claim it's going to do, that helps. But a lot of the community volunteers do not even have information. When you talk to some of these community volunteers, they do not have the information about the vaccine. They do not understand what is going on. And so it becomes difficult for them to talk to their various communities about why they should take the vaccine. So I think that we need to intensify campaign, not only in English, on radio, on TV, but we should target these community volunteers, educate them so that they can send the message back to their communities in terms of in their local languages, so that they understand. As you rightly put it, COVID-19 is such a way that you can decide not to take it, but your action affects somebody else. And so we need to be able to ensure that at least majority of people are willing to take the vaccine, and that is the way we can fight this vaccine, this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bassing. I'm going to go back to Dr. Paul Owusu Odro, who is a public health specialist. Dr. Odro, does the receipt of these vaccines in any way mean that we have won the fight against COVID? That's a good laugh.
That is far from
That's reality. A good laugh, yeah.
That is far from the reality. As I said, we at least need to achieve 70% herd immunity before we can even be able to contain this. What is a bit worrying with RNA viruses, which the SARS-CoV-2 is part of that family, is that they mutate, that is, they change quite often. A classical example is the South African strain that I think they had to put a stop to the AstraZeneca vaccination they were doing because they realized the circulating strains there, the vaccine wasn't able to actually contain them. So yes, for now it is good, at least in our environment, we know even the circulating strains, the vaccines we've received should be able to mount some form of immune response against them. But we don't know what is going to happen in the next month, the next quarter, the next year, as to whether the viruses are going to remain the same or they are going to change. But I have no doubt that it being an RNA virus, it may play tricks on us, and therefore scientists must be up and going, be able to monitor and understand that the current vaccines we have received wouldn't be effective against them. Then quickly some modification will have to be done to the vaccine so that we will be able to contain them. But the year further we've received 600 doses of the vaccine, it's not an indication that we have won. Even if the virus stays as it is, we need at least 70% of the population to be protected before we can be talking of getting ahead of the virus.
Doc, I like that you mentioned the mutation of the virus. Now, if we know that the virus has the ability to mutate and change quite rapidly, where is the confidence in this particular vaccine? Because you might wonder that if you take the vaccine and there's a different mutation, you are likely to still be at risk.
That is correct. But you must have significant mutation, the evolution of this virus. It doesn't mutate as frequent as the other RNA viruses we know. So that is a bit comforting. So we pray that it doesn't really change its character too rapidly. At least whatever we have, be able to contain it for some time before it changes and then modification to the vaccine is made. So as we speak now, let us stick to what we know now and mutate at fast, give rise to strains that the vaccine wouldn't be able to protect. But as I said, it is not certain as to how fast this mutation will happen and even if it will happen at all. But we know that for RNA viruses, they do mutate. So we should brace ourselves for strains that may emerge in the near future, which the vaccine wouldn't be effective against.
So basically it's a possibility, but we don't have that certainty.
There is a possibility. There is a possibility.
But it's not certain.
A high possibility for that matter. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Oduro. Please just stay with us on the line. Dr. Mike Lowusu, are you with us?
Yes, apologies. I think my dropped. So
that's okay. Thank
I
you.
have a bad network.
Yes, you're still here. That's what matters. Dr. Mike Lowusu, we're still discussing this virus. There are also some questions about how many doses you need to take, especially if you have already recovered from COVID. Some people believe that once you have already recovered, you might need just one dose. Is there any truth to this?
The whole context of this vaccine has a number of questions that some of them we know in parts, others we don't know. So we need to explore and find out. There are countries that we want to measure the amount of, and that informs them as to whether you have to they'll give you one dose or two doses. And that is quite difficult. If you have to measure antibody levels in populations to determine whether to receive a dose or not, it's a good option, but then you have a lot of work to do in terms of testing. Under the context of these particular vaccines, whether you have been infected or not, it doesn't matter much. Because we know that the antibodies that you develop against this virus has a mean duration of about 5 months, spread from 3 to the maximum of 8 months. So they don't remain for life. So this is why we are having several waves, first wave, second wave, third wave. But when you are immune today, in a couple of 2 or 3 or 4 months, your immunity will go down. So even for those who have infected and have recovered, they will still lose their immunity at a point in time. So having 2 doses is a surety that you will have some long-lasting immunity. Even how long that will take, we still don't know. Unless we conduct studies alongside to measure what we call the neutralizing antibodies in these people and to see how long it will take. I mean, I think that this virus will behave like the normal influenza viruses that we find causing annual outbreaks in the US, where as mutations evolve, you have new vaccines that will be developed to cover those mutations that will emerge. So it is possible every year we may take booster doses of vaccines to cover new and emerging strains that will come up. And this is why, I mean, I don't think it should be a problem for us to worry about. What is important is that we go ahead and conduct aggressive study alongside to measure what will come out. And this is what is most important. So people should not worry whether you are covered or you have been infected or not infected. You will go ahead and take the vaccine, and by taking the vaccine, it will form part of the data that we have to collect to see how long we are able to cure and how long can become robust against possible infection, possible waves of the virus. So I'm not sure in Ghana anybody is going to test to know how much antibody you have to determine whether to get a boost 1 or boost 2. Whichever way it goes, the 2 doses is what the AstraZeneca data is based on. So we may have to go for 2 doses in order to ensure that people are actively protected. This is important because, I mean, for those of us who study viruses, that if you are partially immune to a particular virus, it can give way for the virus to mutate more. So it is the reason why if you are taking a single dose and then you have partial immunity up to 40 or 50%, you are only telling the virus that it should find better ways to evolve and become much stronger so that you don't get it. And the concept of the 2 doses is to be able to boost your system to have neutralizing antibody at a threshold that will be able to prevent subsequent infection if you are affected from developing severe disease or dying from it. So this is a trial. If you do a trial, you want to administer your vaccines based on the data you have generated for your trial. If you want to do something different, you have to conduct some preliminary studies to assess whether this can be done. People have seen that the Pfizer vaccine is able to get over 90 to 95% efficacy from one single dose. This is in their country. This is what they say, this or that, say that unless you have substantial data, it is not wise to use other things to just go by without any evidence.
But Dr. Michael, is there sufficient data though to show that this AstraZeneca Oxford is efficient against the existing mutations of the virus?
Well, the fact is that the AstraZeneca vaccines were developed in the context of first B1 lineage of the viruses. There were 2 lineages. If you have to, name them according to what we call the Pango lineage, that is what we know really well. The B1s are close to about 500 strains. The A1s are less evolving. So the AstraZeneca was developed within the context of the B1s when the UK strain had not come at all. This is how it was developed. So a prototype of the B strain is what was used experimentally in the lab to now come out with the vaccine. It was when this was developed that the UK strain evolved. And then they conducted another experimental study to find out whether if people are vaccinated, the antibodies they have can neutralize the effect of the B117 strain from UK. And it did. They showed that it's effective against the UK strain. Unfortunately, in South Africa, the B1351 strain is not effective against it. And that is a fact that the AstraZeneca cannot work against the South African strain. So even in our country, we know that the predominant strain is the UK strain. We have an upper hand to say that yes, we can go for it. But we also have it at the back of our mind that we also may have other lurking strains that may cause infection even when one is vaccinated. The fact that we cannot. But the good thing is that as we speak now, I know AstraZeneca is expanding the coverage of their vaccines to take care of the South African variant, and I'm sure in a very short while they will announce. This is why I said that we go for the 2 doses for now to tackle all circulating strains. If the South African strain becomes a problem, we may likely go for a 3rd booster dose that will cover the South African strain. And it's not any anytime soon. It is possible to have a Ghana strain. If you have a Ghana strain, you have to go back, look at the sequencing to find, and then work with the pharmaceutical companies, and then develop further vaccine to cover those strains. The influenza vaccine is dealt with in the US. It goes to what we call an antigen shift and mutation system. Every year, new influenza strains evolve in the US, and every year, new vaccines are developed to take care of it. The technology is sound and is well established. So, no matter how a vaccine evolves, you can expand the scope of your coverage to take care of it. And this is the hope have that if this is done a couple of months or a couple of years, it is very possible we may crash this out of the world. So first things first, we take samples from people, they will analyze them. Through us, in cases which we will keep sequencing samples. We have capacity to sequence, from the Gucci, we will be joining them very soon to find out what evolving strains will come up and to inform pharmaceutical companies to expand their coverage of these strains, even if they can. So I believe that this is good for us to go for it. It is very, very efficacious within our context, and we have to take it and then hope that indeed it's going to perform what it has to perform. If it doesn't, we have options of going for upgraded versions to take care of populations that may be still susceptible to strains that will emerge.
Let me understand your breakdown, Dr. Michael. So we're saying that although this AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine has been properly challenged by the South African variant, our consolation is that the South African variant is not the dominant variant in this country. So due to that, there's a possibility of this vaccine helping us.
Exactly. If you look at data churned out in the Gucci and what we have is a little below 25%. The UK strain is over 60 to 70% for every numbers that we sequence. And the data and the trend still seem to show that, and it's quite holy. The UK strain and South African strain have the same mutation at a point we call the N501Y, which is what increases their transmissibility. But the South African strain have in addition what we call an E484K variation in their sequence. That is what enables them to escape antibody detection by vaccines, which the UK strain doesn't have. So at this point, it looks as if the UK strain has higher level of fitness, which is it has spread more in Ghana than the South African strain. And that for us is good because it means that our vaccine is able to cover a wider population of our people. So as I said, if the UK strain, as we speak now, AstraZeneca and other companies are modifying the sequence of what
the vaccine.
It is possible couple of months we may have an upgraded version of a vaccine that can this time cover. Not just the South African strain, there are about active work going on in the lab, and they are working very hard to ensure that new things come. Like I said, this is going to be with us for a couple of years to come. The technology that has been developed is quite robust, and it gives us the opportunity to amend and to change the coverage of the vaccines to ensure that we have something to target new mutations that will be. This is the hope of the entire.
This vaccine, I stop observing COVID protocol, or do I continue?
So this is a very, very important statement you made. So the vaccine is an added intervention to all that we are doing, and this point has to be clear to everybody. As you take the vaccine, you still use your mask, you still observe your physical distancing, you still do everything you have to do because you must be humble enough to know that we don't know it all. And you can never know it all because you don't understand what the virus is going to do next. So yes, we are taking vaccines, but if something evolves and you decide not to observe protocols, you only give opportunity for something that evolves to still reinfect. So we have to still abide by the protocol, put on our mask, make sure we vaccinate, and then use data and science to inform how things will become. If we go to a point where we think that yes, we have reached a high level of immunity, what in context and in quote herd immunity, where we think that the virus doesn't have any opportunity to now go through the population, we then can take off our mask and say that we are fine. But until we understand and know the end of it, in and talking and discussing about this, we